Wow, I tell you what, I'm sitting in front of Mr. Laughlin, and I can tell you that if his dad was alive, he would be going, "Are you kidding me?" Truly. Does this mic work okay? Okay. Man, I'm so blessed to be here today. My whole life story started here in Joshua, and it is because of people like you that I stand before you today. So I want to start off with why I'm wearing this uniform. It's because it's a reminder to me that no matter what obstacles put in your life, you can overcome it. Because to be a black belt, it takes a lot of effort, I won't go in great detail, but on your black belt test, after a minimum of 3 years of working out, you've got to fight 15 rounds, 2 minutes apiece, with a 1 minute break, and your last 3 rounds are 3 people that are always bigger than you that are wanting to take your head off. So I wear this as a reminder of that, and that all started from my first time I met my bus driver in the 3rd grade, and his name was Mr. Crocker. And a lot of you weren't born when Mr. Crocker was around, but Mr. Crocker would greet you when you got on the bus by, "Good morning," and he'd have a very, very infectious smile. And when he'd take you back home, he'd say, "Jamie," and he would always pause. And I'd say, "Yes, sir. Have a great day." And I still use that phrase today. And going on with Mr. Crocker, he would pick me up. I lived in the original Mountain Valley, not the duplicates. And so there were some bullies, and yes, bullying was around back in the 80s, the real kind of bullying. And I'm certainly not endorsing what Mr. Crocker taught me. I know you cannot do that. I'm blessed that I go to schools and talk about bullying. I know there's lots of laws. However, he witnessed me getting beat up pretty bad one day, and he said, "Jamie, let me tell you something. I've been picking you up and dropping you off, and I've seen you get beat up about 5 times. And he goes, "Here's the deal. Until you take a stand for yourself, until you stand up to the biggest guy in that crowd, you will continue to be bullied." And I said, "Mr. Crocker, they're all bigger than me." And he goes, "Get a big stick." Now, I can't say I went and got a big stick, and I can't certainly endorse that, but those words instilled in me that I do need to stand up for myself. And it all started with a man named Mr. Crocker, who was extremely influential in my life and who later became my 6th grade history teacher. And I'm going to have to say that he was my first hero I'd ever met. I did love John Wayne as a hero, but Mr. Crocker was the first man I'd ever met that was a hero as well as a war veteran. And he just instilled in me so much. So I came to Joshua my 3rd grade year, and Miss Johnson, stunning lady, was my teacher. And a really, really pretty lady. And I remember my first day, as a matter of fact, I had Miss Bransom is a classmate who's here. And anyway, she held my hand, took me in the front, said, "This is Jamie Cashion. I want y'all to welcome him to Joshua." And that's exactly what happened. They enfolded me, I was welcomed, and from that day forward, I knew that in Joshua ISD, I found my new home. However, it was shortly lived because I did get in trouble a lot. And there's no exaggeration to when I say about my 23rd visit to see Mr. Staples, he got clever. And he said, "All right, Jamie, this is what I'm going to do. You've got lots of energy." And back then we didn't know what any of those stuff was. I mean, I had ADD, ADHD, ABC, CBS, you name it. I had it. So he says, "I bought this stethoscope, and I want you, whenever you're feeling this sudden burst of energy, to run outside. You don't have to ask anybody. Just run outside around that playground, and if your heart's not beating really hard, you continue to run." This was great. I'm like, I'm special. I can do this. So after about 2 or 3 times in 1 week of me running, I'm thinking, this is stupid. This is helping nobody. So I was back in trouble, and on my 45th or 46th visit, he pulled another trick. And he said, "Mr. Cashion, I'm going to give up on you." He goes, "This is what we're going to do today. I've got this paddle." And he had a terrible, terrible paddle. He goes, "I'm going to let you give me licks today." I know, right? I'm thinking, no way, I'm going to bust him up. But I didn't. And I don't know, thinking back, I don't understand his thought process in doing that, because he didn't know what I was going to do. I was a crazy kid. But I didn't spank him. As a matter of fact, I somewhat straightened up. And his psychology worked. So I'm beginning to paint a picture that through Mr. Crocker, my steps up my mountain began. And then later on, through Mr. Staples, I added more steps to climb my mountain. And then I get into middle school. Oh, man, Mr. Laughlin. Now, he busted me all the time. I got in trouble all the time. But I will tell you that we formed a bond that is incredible. An absolute incredible bond until the day he passed. I do this a lot. I'm supposed to count. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Was extremely influential to me. As a matter of fact, I was blessed that my father did well in life, and he allowed me to have a limousine to come to my 6th grade prom. And that was a big deal because it picked up a lot of girls, and I was excited about that. And Mr. Laughlin saw that, and he said, Jamie, before I die, I want you to pick me up in that limousine, and you just surprise me. And I want to say it was his 50th wedding anniversary. Unbeknownst to him, I surprised him. But that's because that's the kind of love I had for that man. It was incredible, incredible. So Mr. Laughlin helped me climb that mountain. So I got to go back and forth here. I know a professional wouldn't have to look at notes, but y'all don't want me all over the place. So my sophomore year, as she mentioned, I got burned as a volunteer fireman. And what's important to understand about that is that obviously it was very painful, and I won't go in detail, but it totally changed my life, both mentally and physically. So the most powerful thing that happened to me, other than God saving my life, was when I was in the hospital, I stayed pretty upbeat. But one day, the nurse came in and said, hey, we have a video from you, from your Joshua High School teachers and your classmates. And I cannot begin to explain how excited I was to see that video, because I had been in the hospital about 6 months, was very excited, and they played this video. And it was all the teachers saying how much they loved me, how much they cared for me, how much they were praying for me, and then all the classmates cheering me on. It was the pinnacle of healing for me when I was in the hospital. So I was very excited. My aunt came in that day, which is Mrs. McCoy's mom, and I said, you've got to call Mr. Underwood. Now, Mr. Underwood and I, we just didn't get along, and nothing changed from middle school coming into high school, and I visited him often. But I deserved all of it, no doubt. I even crawled up on the skyline one time, and it wasn't good. So my aunt got Mr. Underwood on the phone. He answered, and when he heard my voice, he was extremely excited. And I was shocked that he was excited. He's like, Jamie! And I said, Mr. Underwood, and he goes, man, have we missed you. And I think he meant it. I really think he meant it. He says, we're all pulling for you. You can make it. I know this is tough, but we're on your side. The teachers are praying for you. We all love you. And you know what? Would you like to say something? I said, sure. Well, I'm going to put you on the intercom system. Now, that's really dangerous, because I'm certain that I was on all kinds of drugs, and I mean, I could have said anything. But through my sobbing and crying, I just simply explained to everybody how much I loved them. And this was on the intercom system. And I will run into classmates and say, I remember the day that you were on the intercom system, and you spoke to us, and how emotional the teachers got. That is because the teachers impacted me, and I impacted them back. And the love and the compassion they shared for me climbed me up more of my mountain. So I was released from the hospital, and I came back, and I was welcomed with open arms. I had lots of love and support, and the school had even gotten me a private tutor, and her name was Miss Marilyn Rogers. And she was the most kindred person that I'd ever dealt with at that time, and she had her hands full. I mean, I was just given a new face, a new body, going through a lot of, I don't want to say anger, just through a lot of things that were happening to me. And she had to take the brunt of all of it. I mean, she was my rock as a Joshua ISD employee. So she tutored me the remaining of my sophomore year in hopes that I could continue on my junior year and graduate with my classmates. So she, without a doubt, gave me more steps to climb up my mountain. So after my sophomore year, I was told that I wouldn't be able to go and be a junior because I was behind, and because of my physical ability, I couldn't stay in school as much, and I wasn't going to be able to graduate with the class of '86, who were my original classmates. I was very upset. And I was told, no problem, we're going to send you to a summer school. Well, the problem is Joshua didn't have a summer school, so I was sent to this hoity-toity school in Fort Worth. And my first day of experience of leaving my comfort zone, my cocoon, from where everybody loved me and were good to me, was about like this. I've got these splints on my hand. I had to wear this face mask that kept pressure on my scars 23 hours a day. So I probably looked like Frankenstein as I got out of the car, and I'm walking like this, and there's all these people that are lining up to register, and they're staring. And then you hear the remarks, and then you hear the name calling, and it was just very, very difficult. So I demanded to go to the office. I used the phone. And I called my mother. Now my mother, I'm going to get it together, I promise. My mother was in a wheelchair from a car accident when I was 7. And she was a rock. So I called her complaining, hey, you got to come, you got to get me picked up. I can't take it. I can't take the name calling. I can't take the people pointing. You got to come pick me up. So she tells me, how'd you get to this phone? I said, I don't understand. How'd you get to the phone? I said, I walked. That's right. You walked. You can dance. You can run. You can jump. You can feel the grass under your feet. You have something I'll never have. You will do this. So I'm going to add her into my steps, even though she wasn't a teacher, but she was to me, to climb up my personal mountain. Then I come back my junior year, and I'm still somewhat behind. So we're going to do, I want to say it was called correspondence courses. And we had a counselor, and her name fails me, but she took personal time away from her job to help me do my correspondence courses to ensure that I would graduate with the class of '86. Again, on her time, she wasn't paid. She did it because, like you, she had compassion to make a difference. And she did it with me. And that gave me more steps to climb my mountain. So, this is so tacky. I'm so sorry. So, when I first came to high school, I was introduced to the final teacher in 1982, and her name was Miss Mary Lou Crane. And Miss Mary Lou Crane was, to me, the perfect teacher because she was classy. I never heard her get angry. And as a matter of fact, she would sometimes even cry in class and show emotion. So to me, I'm just like, wow, this is somebody that I want to emulate as an educator because she was that good. I would even say that she did borderline things that would get her fired today because she cared so much. Things that you can't do with our youth of today. But she did, and we stayed in contact up till about 4 years ago, and she even came to a Facebook party I had 10 years ago. And Miss Crane completed my walk up that mountain. And As an educator myself, I'm a karate instructor, and I've been teaching close to 30 years, and I've been really blessed to go all over the world and be able to spread the message of martial arts in Uganda and in certain places. And as a teacher, I know firsthand what an impact you can make. So I'll be really brief, but the point of what I'm about to read you is that you never know when that certain person you're going to touch is going to be a world changer for them. You never know. So you need to always remember that all those eyes are always looking at you. So I was at a karate tournament in 2012, and I'm just a rambunctious guy. So there was a kid that was crying. He was 11 years old, and he just performed a kata, a thing for karate, and he was upset. And I picked up on that. So all I did, simply, I got on my hands and knees and I said, let me tell you something. You're the greatest. Do you know why you're the greatest? Because you're here today. You made a choice to be here and to compete with hundreds of other children. You made the choice. You're a champion in my eyes. That was it. That was it. I got up, end of story. 2 weeks later, I get this letter. And then I'll be really, really quick with it. Mr. Cashion, my name is Ruth Coyer. My 3 children and I met you at the Yellow Rose International Karate Tournament in San Antonio this past weekend. You judged the creative form division on Friday evening. My daughter Megan had to start her form over. Do you remember her? If I recall correctly, it was shortly before Megan's competition when we met you. We were exhausted from our trip, and my son, very fitting, Joshua, was not the least bit respectful towards you. He was preoccupied with his little video game. Do you remember him? He was very upset because he had just lost his previous competition. He was sitting next to me and my baby boy with the red hair. The redheaded, by the way, really enjoyed speaking with you. However, Joshua didn't seem to care. I'm writing to let you know that Joshua did care. And though you don't know his history, you touched him. I don't cry all the time. I really don't. It's just, this is really sad. And he regrets treating you in the manner that he did. You know what, I'm lying. I do cry a lot. You see, Joshua, at the age of 11, had been suffering from depression since he was 4. Nothing seemed to interest him, not even life. He is no stranger to suicide watch. He is a very intelligent little boy. In fact, I have been blessed with 3 beautiful, talented children. Let me go on. Okay. He lacks interest and subsequent desire to continue or at least be consistent in most everything he does. This is not his fault. This is his own personal struggle in finding the interest to wake him up. Friday evening, during the competition, you spoke to my son. You took a knee and you encouraged him. When you said what you said, he looked at me, and if I thought you were he asked me, do you think he was just joking? There was something about you that captivated him. That evening at our hotel, we Googled you and learned your background. Joshua realized that he missed a rare opportunity to speak to a wonderful, dedicated Christian man who is very well thought of in martial arts. He was bothered all night long that he couldn't sleep. That Saturday morning, he woke up and he said, I feel alive. He went on to win his first round in competition, and he was so disappointed because he dedicated it to you. He stood before a crowd and said, I dedicate this to Jamie Cashion. So from a little boy in South Texas who suffers from deep depression most all his life, he thanked Jesus in front of all these people for meeting you. Thank you, Mr. Cashion, for reaching out to my little boy, even though you had no clue that you were doing it at the time. Something happened to him, and all he thinks about is being the best he can be. He glows now And folks have seen a difference in him, particularly his teachers. Thank you, you're his new hero. This isn't about me. This is about the opportunity I took to invest in this child as a teacher. It's the same opportunity that y'all will encounter this coming up school year. And I would venture to say, whether you know it or not, you probably have more influence on a pupil than their siblings, their parents, and you're probably around them more. And you as a teacher and or an employee of this school are the frontline defense against forms of abuse, against unfelt love. You're the one that can plant a seed to make a difference in that child's life. And I want to mention two other things, and I'll close up. When I was teaching at a recreation center in Greenbrier, which is off of Hempfield Street, and it was somewhat a bad neighborhood. And it was my compassion to do that because as an instructor and a teacher, I want to get to those that can't be gotten to. So this was a free program that I'd done for about 7 years, and I had a young lady who was 13 years old. She had extremely poor self-esteem. Her number one factor for that was her parents. And I know as employees of a school system, you can only get involved so much. Now, I wasn't employed, I was volunteering, so I did what I wanted to do. I said what I wanted to say, and I'm a big toucher. And I really believe that a sign of love is touching. And it's a very, very powerful tool when used in the right way. So this little girl was out of shape, and one day she was kicking, and she wasn't good. Matter of fact, she was terrible, but she never knew that from me. And as she was kicking, I went by, it was about her second week class, said, you know what, Elizabeth, that was the best side kick I've ever seen you do. And she smiled really big, and I thought, okay, I got this. I know where I can affect this child. Continue to watch her, and her mom is watching me. And her mom is one of those parents, I know y'all have never encountered this, that is living through their child. Because they were a failure, they're going to now live through their child, and they're going to be really hard on them. And a child is a child once. You have one time to be a child. So this parent would even make remarks so bad as, well, that kick would be better if you wouldn't eat a Twinkie. That kick would be better if you wouldn't come home and eat cake. And continue. I never said anything to her. I'm just like, I will defeat you as her teacher. So the next week I came in and I says, oh my gosh, Elizabeth, look at your hair. That's flawless. Your hair looks wonderful. Give me a hug. Gave her a hug. The smile was bigger, much bigger. So a couple of weeks go by and we do a report card program with our karate that you've got to make certain grades, A's, if you want to progress up to your next belt. All of a sudden, the next semester, Elizabeth is getting improvement in her grades. And I said, Elizabeth, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud. Look where you've come from. Gave her a hug. Smile got big. I got a letter from her teacher. Wish I'd have kept it, but we had the teachers do remarks. What can she improve in class? How's she doing in class? The teacher commented, Mr. Cashion, I don't know what you're doing, but you're making a difference. That's what a teacher can do. So, unfortunately, about the 5th or 6th hug I gave her, her mom got very upset, stood up and said, that's it. I'm tired of you touching my daughter. We're talking, it was the small of her back. And she goes, it's inappropriate. I'm going to get you fired, which I'm volunteering. You can't get me fired. And I've really never been disrespectful to a parent until then. I followed her outside and I said, ma'am, here's the problem with your child. It's you. Now, y'all can't do that. I know you wish you could. I know you wish you could. But you can't do that. So I explained to her that instead of pumping her up, she's stepping on her and she's grounding her. And you are what you're surrounded by. So you're again the front line this year to make a difference in that child's life. And you can do it. And here's my last story. This year I love to scuba dive. So I went scuba diving in Cabo San Lucas. And I get on the boat. There's only one other diver beside myself. And this guy gets on the boat. He's the captain. and he's staring at me. Now, I get stared at a lot, so I don't think nothing of it. But he's staring at me, and I'm thinking, well, he's going to ask me what happened. I'm going to tell him. And I put a good spin on it. I mean, I tell people, especially kids, 2 kids are playing with matches. That's what started our fire. And if you play with matches, you can end up looking like me because you can't control a fire. And I make a reason for these scars to be on my face, and I make an impact. So this kid continues to stare, and finally I said, do you have any questions for me? And he goes, are you from Fort Worth? I said, yes, I am from Fort Worth. And he goes, do you teach karate? And I said, yes, I do. And I said, do I know you? And he goes, Mr. Cashion. And he bowed. And I'm thinking, all right, obviously it's a karate. So I just go with it because I'm blessed, just like y'all, that you run into people, past students, and you don't always remember them. So he goes, Mr. Cashion, my name is Solomon. And it hit me. I'm like, Solomon. And he goes, Mr. Cashion, I took from you at Greenbrier Recreation Center when I was 11. I said, Solomon, how old are you? And he goes, I'm 33. And I said, wow. And he goes, Mr. Cashion, do you remember that I would walk 2 or 3 miles to that program? I said, yeah, Solomon, I do. And he goes, do you remember the time that you saw me walking home and you pulled over and said, Solomon, are you hungry? And I said, Solomon, I'm sorry, I don't remember that. And he goes, you did. And you took me to the nicest place I had ever eaten in my life. Guess where that place was? The Italian Inn. No, the Olive Garden. I'm sorry, the Olive Garden. So, which I think, I mean, yes, it's nice, but there's nicer places. Anyway, it just made an impact that kid remembered the car I was driving, and 22 years later remembered what I did to make a difference in his life. That's because I was his teacher, no different than you. That's what you can do as a teacher. You are the front line. And I know that so many things have changed for y'all, but I can tell you that I have climbed my mountain because of people just like you. And there's no doubt in my mind that my most fondest memories of my life are when I came to school in Joshua. And I still am very close to the majority of my classmates, except for Miss Branson because she doesn't communicate with me. I'm still in contact with a lot of teachers, and I actually go around now, I did it to several people here today, that I apologize because I know that I was a rambunctious kid. I know that. I had lots of energy, and I stayed in trouble. But guess who never gave up on me? My teachers. The employees of the Joshua school system never, ever gave up on me. As a matter of fact, they lifted me up. And you should never stoop down unless you're picking somebody up. And that's what they did for me. So I want to end with this, that the brightest stars are those that shine for others. And that's all of you. All of you. You're the brightest stars in the United States school system. I know it because I'm from here. And it impacted my life and put me where I'm at. Don't ever forget that. And may God richly bless you and give you the opportunity to touch so many more lives, because you may be the only person that touches that child's life. Thank you all very much.